Hi, I'm Liz Seeley, founder of Starry-Eyed Strategy, and I help you turn creativity into your greatest competitive advantage. After decades partnering with the world's best, biggest, and most beloved brands, I want to take you behind the scenes to see how the most creative leaders turn ideas into impact. Each episode features leaders from top CEOs and CMOs to founders and authors, revealing how they stay inspired to create brands that launch and last, and how you can do it too. You'll walk away with practical lessons and tools you can use, whether you're repositioning your brand, rallying your team, or planning your next big launch. So let's get started and stay starry-eyed. My guest today is Megan Lynbergh. Megan is the Senior Vice President of Client Strategy at Datassential, the world's largest menu database and the leading intelligence platform to turn global insight into actionable strategies that accelerate innovation and growth. Megan partners with top restaurant, retail, and CPG brands from Starbucks, PepsiCo, and Diageo to P&G, ConAgra, and Kroger. She helps them predict trends and emerging flavors, test new menu items and ideas, and find new customers easily. A frequent guest speaker, an industry speaker, and Datassential evangelist, Megan, you're known for making complex trend and data stories feel actionable for R&D, marketing, culinary, and executive teams. Your work helps brand leaders spot white space, build future-ready concepts, and innovate with confidence. I, myself, am a Datassential user, as you can tell. But prior to Datassential, Megan held sales and marketing roles with Nation's Restaurant News, Hospitality Technology, and Black Box Intelligence. She's a proud University of Georgia graduate, and she lives in Phoenix with her husband and 2 kids. Megan, welcome to Stay Starry-Eyed.
Oh, thank you, Liz. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you today. What an introduction, by the way. I hope I can live up to that, but thank you.
That's what I think of you, and that's what you've done. As we begin, I'd love for you to speak directly to the brand leader listening. What do you hope they'll take away from our conversation today? What is one thing you hope they try or think differently about for their own brand and business?
Yeah. So I love this question. I've listened to your podcast and I know that this is kind of how you open it. So I appreciate it. I think it's a really good opportunity for us to kind of ground ourselves, right, as we start to talk. So one of the things that I think is happening right now, we're talking a lot about it at Datassential, and we're seeing it in the market, is this interest in AI and artificial intelligence. And this idea that we should all be leaning into it and we should be using it. It's going to make us more efficient and more effective. And especially when we think of innovation and food service, there's certainly a big opportunity for it. But what we find is there's a wide range of the way people are using it. And we at Datassential use AI quite a bit. And we just like to help kind of steer the market a little bit and shine a little bit more of a light on it. I am not an AI expert by any means, but I have a great team behind me that is. And so what we found is some people are using, say, ChatGPT for basic things, emails, maybe sales pitches, learning more about your clients, things like that. Others might work for large companies where they're implementing their own AI agents and they're feeding data into it. Datassential's working with some of those to feed our data into it. But there's this big kind of wide gap. And one of the things I think that a lot of people don't know is that Datassential is very AI driven. We've actually been using it for years. We used to do these cute little names for our tools within our platform, because there's many different like modules and things that you could do. And so we had something called Flavor and Firefly. And we've had this tool called Haiku that we introduced in 2017. It's a predictive analytics tool. So it takes our years of menu history and menu data, and it predicts with 98% accuracy what the next 4 years will look like. So are those items going to continue to trend and grow? Is that something that you should pay attention to, right? So we had that tool. We created it in 2017. I've been at Datassential for 5 years. I just learned this year that the reason we called it Haiku is because AI is in the middle of it. I didn't even know that. And so I like to say we've been doing AI since before AI was cool. And I kind of tell that story in jest, just because I think it's really key for leaders to understand the value and the credibility of the data that goes into artificial intelligence. And so we're really proud of the fact that we've built this AI model. We continue to build out more AI capabilities, and it's all powered by our 20 years of menu history, our 10 years of consumer insights, our incredible team, and it can help you lean into AI and make smarter decisions. And it also has that food service nuance that we know is so important. So that I think I want to use to ground us. And then also as we think about innovation, we think about what's going on in the world and kids and social media. I think sometimes innovation feels really scary and I need to be doing crazy things. But we actually take a much more approachable innovation kind of approach. Let me do that again. We actually consider it to be much more of an approachable innovation that you should be doing. So you don't need to go wild and crazy, do the latest TikTok trend. You just need to kind of understand the nuance and the things that consumers are interested in, global flavors, spicy flavors, and take something that's familiar to them and add those unique twists. So hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that, some things that we're seeing, and how you can really kind of lean into innovation without having to throw, all your core menu items out, but instead just take something kind of new and incremental.
So it sounds like one of the key takeaways for our brand leaders listening is to not be overwhelmed by all the AI opportunities and all the overwhelming innovation. Keep it approachable, keep it doable. I've also heard that AI is like karma. You get out what you put in.
Yeah, right. That's a really good. I've not heard that, Liz. So that's a really good. Yeah. So make sure you're using good data. That's where we come in. And trust your partners, right? Those that have helped you in this sort of pre AI world. The smart ones are leaning into it. They know the industry, they know AI, and they can really help you.
I love it. Well, let's get into more of the AI and innovation. But first, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you started in this brand building and trend tracking world. Tell us a little bit about your early experiences, especially at Black Box and places. What did you learn early on about how insights shape business decisions?
Yeah, yeah. So I love what I do. Datassential is a great company. We have such insightful and great data. My poor husband is an insurance broker. He loves his job, but I always say that I win when we're out at parties and with friends, and I get to talk about food. I also get to take the kids to try new things. Like when Swig opened up in Phoenix, I took a gaggle of neighborhood kids to go try it out. So I really just enjoy this industry. And I sort of fell into it, I would say, a little bit. I mean, like a lot of folks, I worked in restaurants when I was in high school. I worked in a mall coffee shop. My uncle owned a restaurant in Boston where I grew up. But I never really understood, I think, in college that food service could be a career track. It just wasn't something that was on my radar. So I got a marketing degree in my 20s. I spent time with trade publications, which is what led
Mhm.
me eventually to Nation's Restaurant News. So I was working with like IT publications and sales and marketing. And our publisher bought Nation's Restaurant News in like 2010 or so. And that was just like the coolest thing in our portfolio. And I was determined to go work for those folks. They were amazing. They were incredible. They were doing some really great things in the media space. And so I went to work for Nation's Restaurant News, and that was it in terms of food service. Like I was done. I was like, this is my home, and this is what I'm going to do. But in that time, we at NRN really leaned into insights into the industry and into the operator, and we really tried to help our manufacturer and supplier clients understand their customers better. So there's so much facing restaurant operators, supply chain, labor issues, cost, traffic, sales, and then you've got the innovation and the food and things like that. And so we really used insights to help educate our customers about their own customers and to help them create more of that trusted partnership. The industry was really starting to lean into data, really starting to move beyond that transactional supplier and into more of that partnership role. As things get harder, you want to lean on those folks that you trust. And so I used Datassential. We used some other partners at the time, and really knew that I enjoyed the data and wanted to move into that eventually. So I went to Black Box where I got an even better education on the operator mindset, what was driving their traffic, how important and critical their employees were, general manager, like how important that role is. And so got a little bit more of the operator view. And then I joined Datassential in 2020. It was like a dream. We were trying to build out our sales team, kind of take Datassential to the next level. So I was thrilled to be a part of that. I helped build our sales team. And then just this past year, moved over into more of this client facing role. So I deal with a lot of our large strategic clients. And then, as you mentioned, do a lot of our speaking engagements and just really love connecting, understanding how folks are using our data and how we can help connect them to more of the business value and the impact that we can have.
And tell us a little bit about that. What are the data opportunities? What do you help these biggest companies with?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people know us for menu insights and consumer insights. Jack Lee, our founder, is a visionary, excuse me, in the industry, and he's spoken all over the world. And so we definitely tap into that. We track restaurant menus. We help folks really understand what are the new trends, the new foods and flavors that you should be paying attention to. And we want to help you understand that before it's kind of widespread. We want to help you stay ahead of it, but then also really understand how that plays with your brand. So I like to say that each brand has its own sort of DNA, and that's going to influence kind of the level of innovation or the type of innovation. So a mid-scale family dining brand is going to innovate much differently than an emerging coffee chain that's tapping into Gen Z. And that's okay. That's their brand and what they lean into. So we take menu data, we take consumer insights, everything from consumer affinity for flavors to, large trends like Gen Z and what they're leaning into. And then we can do concept testing, we can do brand tracking, we're doing price monitoring now down at the unit level. So again, as you think about that business impact, we help brands talk to their franchisees about pricing and know where they have opportunity, maybe know where they've taken it too far. Most importantly, really kind of understand their competitive landscape. And then we also help food manufacturers target the right brand. So hopefully operators are feeling that those manufacturers are more of that partner. They're being smarter in their approaches. Don't just pitch me a salad dressing. Help me with a whole salad program or a whole idea. Help me bring everything together and know that this fits my brand. Don't pitch me something crazy that has no fit within my brand or my footprint or my operations. So really, we are grounded in innovation. We're grounded in sales intelligence, and really being that strategic partner to the operator and supplier space.
And for those of us who've been doing this for a while, whether it's trend tracking or doing competitive analysis, Datassential is like magic. I remember spending weeks and weeks trying to track the especially emerging and expanding trends because you'd really have to dig. The fact that Datassential has all of that within the trend curve, just like we used to spend forever doing, it's instantaneous. I also love, well, you tell me about these are a couple of my favorite things. The promotions calendars that you can see from competitors so that you can get a sense of what everybody's doing. We had our friend Breyer from TED conferences talk about just take a minute to see what everybody else is saying and
Yeah.
selling so that you know how to be different. What are a couple of your favorite elements of Datassential when it comes to the tools and how clients use them?
Yeah. So I have a few favorites. The menu adoption cycle, the OG, if you will, is probably one of my favorites. I because I love how we can look at a specific category, whether it's barbecue or burgers or milkshakes or coffee, and we can really see the different items and flavors that people are playing with. And for those of you who are not familiar, the MAC menu adoption cycle, the MAC, it's a trend life cycle. We look at everything from inception, really new and trendy, all the way to ubiquity, where we can kind of find it everywhere. And we dig into foods and flavors and items on that. We help a brand, whether it's manufacturer or operator, really understand what makes sense for them. So again, if you're really food forward and trendy, you want to know those early stage items that drives excitement with consumers. But if you're a quick serve or a convenience store or that family dining chain, you're going to play a little bit more in the later stage, the ubiquitous items. Maybe you're going to add that unique twist. But you're also going to want to know what's coming, and going to bubble up soon. And so they're really helpful as folks think about innovation. And again, as I mentioned, it doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't need to be crazy. We can, take things like pizza, fried chicken, burgers, all the things that we've seen some great innovation on, and just add those unique twists. So I'm a huge fan of the Mac. I could talk about those for days. We also recently introduced social listening, which I really love, and we're doing it in addition to the menu data, the consumer data. So I think it's really hard right now to understand what social trends you should be paying attention to because there's so many. And some of them are fleeting. My kids, I see it. We did the frozen gummy bears, you guys, with the Sprite and all of that. We've played with all of that. That's not a menu item. And so we need to know kind of what has staying power and then what makes sense for food service. There's so much nuance, I think, to food service and to when you think about operators that are innovating and trying to put ideas on their menu for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now. That makes a lot of sense. And then the last thing, what you mentioned, Liz, is our LTO tracker. So being able to understand what new items are being introduced into the market by your competitive set, maybe by somebody that's not your competitor, but they're doing something really interesting. And that's something that could play well for you and how it's resonating with consumers. So it's where we see a lot of the craveable items. We're going to talk a little bit about snacking and little treat culture, which is fun. And so we can understand what operators are using to drive sales and traffic and what's really resonating with consumers.
The other thing I love about this is just the wide implications that food trends has. Some might not know this, but the food trends that begin, especially from a flavor standpoint, not only will travel across all the different facets, a lot of times it's trickling down from fine dining to, fast casual, QSR and beyond. But in addition, a lot of the food trends will then make their way into other elements, including beauty and personal care and
Yeah.
all the trends will track perfectly. So this is really applicable to not just those in the food service realm, but many, many industries are impacted by all the trends that start right here.
Yeah. It's so great. I mean, we're in such a great industry and we have such a huge impact, I think, for consumers. And again, that's just one of the great things that I love about it.
Well, and as you said, data is everywhere, but its meaning is rare. And some of these trends are not trends, they're fads and they're fleeting. How do you and the Datassential team help clients separate the noise and the fads from the
Yeah.
actual insights and the shifts that will impact consumer behavior?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that right now, right? And it can be kind of dicey. And you could chase a lot of things and go down a lot of rabbit holes. So I think that's where the credibility comes in. Like I mentioned earlier, the history, we've been doing this for a long time. We have evolved and innovated ourselves as new things have bubbled up, just like I mentioned, with social media pricing, which has become more and more important in the past couple of years. So, I think having a partner, whether it's Data Central or someone else that has that history and credibility that stood behind some of the greatest trends and have been able to identify them early. And that really one of the things that I think is key for us. And again, when we think about artificial intelligence, it's the people on our team and it's the people behind the data that can help discern maybe weird things that we're seeing or really kind of dig into a trend and understand. So oftentimes we see trends kind of bubble up because of large categorical shifts or large shifts that we're seeing. So spicy foods, global foods, those are becoming more prevalent because the younger generation is more diverse than we've ever seen, and they're exposed to different foods and flavors from their friends. They're exposed to new things on social media. So a lot of times there's big overarching trends that then we see direct things kind of bubble up and are relevant because of that. So really, like I'm a huge fan of the people we have at Data Central. A lot of them are foodies, R&D folks, way more into the data than I am. I'll give you an example with our social tool. We had lemonade. The term lemonade popped up a couple years ago and bubbled up, and it was because Beyonce had introduced her Lemonade album, and so like that's our point right there, right? Like to be able to dig through the data and understand, is this something, all of a sudden lemonade is hot? Nope, nope. We need to kind of clean this out and know that for food service operators, this is not relevant. So if you just have a tool that's just pulling stuff and not taking that extra time and going that extra layer, you could really have some crazy data there.
Totally, totally. When it seems to me, the macro trends or these bigger shifts stay the same and just evolve with new names and manifestations. Take protein, for instance. Everybody's like, That's not going away. Protein has gone from meat to like whey to plant based." The same, to your point, global or simple refuge was nostalgia. Now it's nostalgia. It's like it just evolves and takes on new forms. Tell us a little bit about how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. And we're seeing a lot of things bubble up with Gen Z. We just did a webinar yesterday and we were talking about some flavors. Lemon pepper was one of the flavors that we sort of identified. And if you've ever been on a Data Central webinar, they have a really active chat, which is so fun to see people and respond and talk about the data. And somebody was like, lemon pepper, that is not new. And it's not new. But for Gen Z, they are being exposed to new foods and flavors that they're not familiar with, that all of us, I mean, come on, look at the way they dress nowadays, right? My daughter leaves for school like I did in the 90s and thinks that she's, something hot. And I'm like, girlfriend, I had Doc Martens when I was your age too. Okay. This is not new. But it's new to them and they are discovering it. And so it's really interesting to see some things that we all think have been around for a long time bubble up again. So there is definitely a cycle. There's also, those macro trends that we've talked about, and then different things that come in and out of it. So texture is really big right now. So we're seeing that have a big play with things like boba and Dubai chocolate, right? And chocolate and pistachio together are not new, but in this Dubai chocolate approach, it is. So it's just really interesting to see. And for those of us who've done it for a long time, to see things come back and kind of introduce this younger generation to these new foods and flavors. And for those of you as chefs and in food, like this should be great. If we can bring baked Alaska back, right? We can bring anything back. And so it's really fun. And I joke about my kids. I speak about them a lot because they are my own little like focus group internally. And I do have a lot of fun when they bring me something that they think is just so cool and incredible. And I get to like flex a little bit and be like, Psh, I've known about that for years. So it's fun to kind of dig in a little bit with that.
I love it. And I think it happens every generation. I remember I discovered Lambrusco for the first time, which is, carbonated red wine. That's amazing. And I was like, Dad, you've got to try this. This will be our new favorite. He's like, that was popular in the 70s.
Yeah.
It all comes
Yeah.
back again.
That's too funny, Liz. That's really funny. Sparkling red wine's coming back too. So there you go. We just covered that in our
Now it's
future.
canned.
Here we go.
No. That was it was when it started to peak in fine dining like 10 years ago that I told him about it. Now that's ubiquitous more.
Yeah.
And then it trickles down from food service to CPG too.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I love when stuff bubbles up, and we see that a lot where it bubbles up from the independent operator, the fine dining, and then it proliferates. Do you remember that scene in The Devil Wears Prada, where she's wearing a shirt and she's like arguing with Meryl Streep about like, I don't like fashion, and she's like, oh honey, that color came from the runway in this. So food's kind of the same way, right? Like even chains, like they are taking their influence from these fine dining operators, and and then they make it more approachable and attainable for the rest of us. So definitely huge influence there.
Exactly. Sidebar, Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out soon. That's
I know. I'm excited.
Megan, talk to us a little bit about which top trends you've seen this year. I know you mentioned little treat culture, what has been the most popular, and then you can tell us a little bit too about the generational differences of what we're starting to see the next generation craving.
Yeah, so little treat culture is definitely something that we've talked about quite a bit this year at Datassential. If you think about kind of the economic climate that we're in right now, right? We're not in a recession, according to the Fed, at least by the clear definition of it. But we're in this weird kind of funk. We call it a vibe session at Datassential. So even though we're not, officially in a recession, people just kind of feel weird and they don't feel great about spending a ton of money. And so this has ticked off this little treat culture. So I feel better about spending $5 or $7 or $10 a couple times a week, maybe than, a full out blown meal out to eat. Whether that is truly more fiscally responsible or not is up for debate, but it has ticked off this snacking culture, this little treat culture. Again, Gen Z is really driven by this. So candidly, I took my daughter to Starbucks this morning because she asked, because it's Friday. And it was like, come on, mom, why not? And so there's also this idea of like, I deserve this. It's weird, right? Things are kind of iffy, but I want to treat myself. And so they kind of go hand in hand. So Starbucks, obviously, I think was one of the first ones with their $5 drinks and $7 drinks. We've seen a lot of new concepts pop up, Dutch Bros, Seven Brew, a lot of beverage concepts, Swig, I mentioned earlier, which we're big fans of, cookies. So it's definitely an indulgent occasion, I would say. We see a lot more sweets in that category than we see kind of savory. But we see it like, Gen Z would have a treat every day if we let them, whether that's at home or out of home. Obviously, we hope that they do more of it out of home. So that's something that we covered quite a bit, and that'll continue. I would say value is definitely something that we covered in 25. We definitely will keep an eye on in 26. Again, if we think about the economic climate and kind of this K approach that we see in terms of economic growth, got a lot of higher end consumers, you've got a lot of lower end consumers. And so we're seeing a lot of operators move to value. We hadn't seen as much of that since like 2009 and 2010. So we're seeing a lot more value play combo meals. It's hard though. It's not just cheap food that consumers want. They want it to taste good. It needs to be craveable. It needs to be unique and interesting. So it's a really tough play, I would say, for operators to do well, but they're doing it. And I expect that to be something that we continue to focus on in 2026.
Right, interrupt. When you think about value, what does that mean? It is more, we are big proponents at Starry Eyed of saying not deals and discounts, but value as added value. Kava has been a good example of giving you more than is expected. Talk to us a little bit about what you've seen work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It's not the cheapest price point for sure. Although there is definitely kind of a sweet spot. I think it's in like the $5 to $7 range, if I'm not mistaken, based on our data, where consumers consider it a good value. Has to be good food. So often it is, something that they enjoy often. We see a lot of loyalty. I'm sure you've seen this, Liz, where it's a loyalty play. So you have the app and you're getting push deals that way. That's certainly a great approach. And then what I love, and I know we talked a little bit at the beginning, is what you've seen from Chili's as they push value as a full service operator, full on going after the quick serve operator for the price point and everything. And as a family, we've been to Chili's a couple times in the past few months. We hadn't been in years. But my kids kind of saw the ads, and I have a 15-year-old. He eats a ton, and so he's like, "Mom, let's go try this 3 for whatever." And it really was a great deal. The food was good, the service was great, and the price was on point. So it's a tough equation for operators. I don't envy them. We have a lot of data though that we can share. We actually just did a value keynote where we can talk about the craveability of the food and trying to balance that with the right price point. And then certainly bringing in that loyalty play and getting consumers in that way.
Love it. Okay, so there's little treat culture value. Those are from this year, and they'll continue. Any others that have really stood out?
So yeah, so as we look at next year, so you mentioned protein. Protein's been huge. We're seeing more of a focus back on meat and animal-based protein, maybe less so on the plant-based side. And then one of the things that's bubbling up, we'll see it more in retail, is fiber.
Mhm.
So if you're a middle-aged female like me, my Instagram is full of protein and fiber and all this stuff. And so we're seeing more of a fiber push for consumers across the board. Fiber maxing is something where you're trying to get as much fiber as you can. I do expect to see it more in retail. Where it makes sense, we might see it in food service, but we have to remember a lot of times people are going out to eat because they're craving something. They're not going to make it at home. It's kind of why cottage cheese and that whole craze never made it in food service. I don't go out to eat for cottage cheese ice cream, right? I make that at home when I want to treat, but I want to be good. So we definitely see fiber being something that's going to bubble up, and that we'll be talking about a lot more in 2026 as
Okay.
well.
And what is the nostalgia trend all about? I thought that our team had created that like 2.5 years ago, but now it's everywhere. So I guess it was already there.
Yeah, so that's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, right? Is reintroducing foods and flavors to the younger generation, and bringing back nostalgic items. So to
Mhm.
us, we might have grown up with them. Maybe they're from our childhood, but for Gen Z, they're new. So things like dirt and worms, if you remember that, like that Oreo pudding with the worms. We actually surveyed consumers, and Gen Z thought that was kind of more unique than Dubai chocolate because they've been exposed to Dubai chocolate on social, whereas they hadn't seen this kind of dirt and worms thing. I mentioned baked Alaska. Like I said, if we can make baked Alaska trendy again, we can do anything. We just identified mudslides as something to kind of keep on your radar. Obviously it's been around a long time. I drank mudslides in high school before I drank real alcohol. I can remember that, but it plays into this like coffee trend, the indulgent trend. So we might see something like that bubble up and come back again. It's really, I think it's so fun to see things like that come back and to see the younger generations get excited about it.
That's great. Where do you see the dirt worm? I remember Oreo had the dirt worm.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else is doing that right now?
Custard places have done it. We used to go to a place in Kansas City called Sheridan's Custard, and I know that they have one. My daughter's played with it even. Like, I think she saw something on social media, and we did it here at home. So,
Mhm. And then the mudslide, tell us a little bit about the things that don't apply. Like, I would drink a mudslide with you, but I hear Gen Z doesn't want as much alcohol, so maybe they would do the mocktail?
oh, it's so interesting. It really is interesting. And I just presented some alcoholic beverage data a month or two ago to some hotel folks. Yeah, it's interesting. They're not as frequent drinkers as the older generations are. They just aren't as into alcoholic beverages, and it's interesting. Some of our data, like those that don't drink in that generation, haven't, and so like they never have. So they're not even like aware of what they may be missing. Do you know what I mean? So when we think of mocktails and or NA beverages, they do appeal to some part of Gen Z, but then there's a whole part that may not even care about NA because they don't even know, what it should taste like or what they're missing. They're much more social when they drink. And if you think of this generation, there's more of a focus on mental health. So they seem to be aware of alcohol's effects, and how that might impact them from a mental health standpoint. So it's just not something. But again, I mean, we're still a nation of drinkers. There's still a good portion of Gen Z that does drink, but it is definitely a shift. Less beer, we find, and more into spirits. So I think there's definitely an opportunity on cocktail sides. It's funny, one of the data points says that like they want to be experts and connoisseurs. So as they lean into cocktails and spirits, they kind of want to know more about it. So maybe from an educational standpoint, there's an opportunity there for those of those in the beverage space.
What are you thinking for all the breweries that abound, especially those complete restaurant hospitality companies that all they have are brewery brands? Should they be augmenting, adding cocktails, or could they turn
Oh, yeah.
their
Oh,
beers into
no.
cocktails?
I don't know. I mean, we see beer cocktails, right? I mean, we see some opportunities there. And then even like the ready to drink, those are a great way to add things to your menu without having to invest. So, canned cocktails. Um, so I would say that, or, again, maybe your audience and you know who your consumer is. And we'll see. I think one of the things I'm interested in is as Gen Z ages, maybe as more of them leave college and come into the workforce, will those alcohol habits shift? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to watch.
We shall see. Good news for us as parents, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for those of us with kids, I mean, it's a totally different ball game in terms of what we need to be prepared for with alcohol and their exposure to it. So
True.
yeah,
And we'll still be there for the spirits companies and the restaurants to help
yeah,
them innovate.
yeah. I'm still a beer drinker, so and wine, definitely on the wine side too. So
Really?
yeah, I like my red wine for sure.
All
So,
right. I want to hear about your favorite drinks. I don't discriminate. I do a little of all. But
uh,
we'll talk about that in a moment. How do you, Megan, evaluate early ideas before a brand invests them? To switch gears a little bit, say you've examined all the trends, you put them through your brand filter and you know what fits. What are the methods and best practices that you use to test those before a company makes them?
yeah, yeah. So, we talked a little bit about kind of staying up to date. We've got great reports on, foods and flavors, categories, consumers. Those certainly lay the groundwork for a lot of our customers. Then when we get into like really starting to vet ideas, there's a couple different things that we do. One is we have an AI driven tool called concept ideation. I like to call it AI, or excuse me, data backed whiteboarding. So we actually had a client who told us that they had a CMO that would come in on Mondays and be like, I saw these great things at the grocery store, or I was out to eat and I saw this. We need to do this. And so this tool really helped them either, like redirect maybe, like, let's try this, or be like, yeah, okay, there's something to this. And so it's a really cool, you put in an idea, so a name and a quick description, kind of the ingredients that might be in it. And then it takes all of our data, everything from our menu data, our menu adoption cycle data, our consumer surveys, and it starts to paint a picture for you in terms of how unique and craveable is this? What's the appeal level of it? Who might it appeal to? So you can even play with it. Like if you're trying to skew more towards Gen Z or millennials, you can use that. So that's kind of a really cool initial tool that a lot of our clients will use, and help you vet something. So we used to be a really big gut driven business, I think, in food service. And thankfully, because of all this data, we can now do it and be much smarter about it. And then from there, we do have concept testing. So we've worked with a lot of large brands to help them develop their whole innovation process from start to finish and vet concepts. And then we'll work with other folks, including manufacturers. Oftentimes, manufacturers will run concepts through us before they bring it to an operator. So even better to say to, Buffalo Wild Wings, we've got this great idea. And by the way, we tested it on behalf of you, with consumers, and this is how it scored. So we do concept testing, we do proprietary testing. And then, as I mentioned, we have this giant database. We've tracked every item that's come out from the top 250 or so chains for the past like 15 years. And we see how we run them through the same concept test. So we can see how they score with consumers. Are they unique? Are they craveable? Will it drive traffic, right? That's huge right now. Is it a good value? So that's where we get a lot of our insights when we think about value. And it's not just the price. Oftentimes we're seeing a little bit higher price point get that great value score because of what it offers, as you mentioned, kind of offering more. And then we can even go and do some custom work as well, whether it's a turf study, whether it's some custom questions. Just depends on kind of the level of work that we're doing with a client. But it's
The other
great.
thing I love about the AI powered platform, for those who remember the old school concept testing of bases and things, that it was like $2,500 for a slot and you get it back and maybe your scores are not as good, but you don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can really kind of vet a few things early on before you start talking to your suppliers or before you put it into a full concept test. Yeah. It's been really
Totally. Wow.
great.
I
Yeah.
love it. What's the most valuable question brand leaders should ask their insights team? What should they be asking them for when it comes to the insights? Maybe they're working with you or not, but what should they be tracking along with?
Yeah. I mean, am I allowed to say what does Datassential say? And that would be my first answer.
Yeah.
No, I think it's this idea of what should we be paying attention to? What should be on our radar? Again, I think it's so easy to jump onto a craze because we see it now everywhere. I had somebody say, like, everybody knows that spicy is trending. I'm like, I know, but like you didn't know that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right? Like that's the goal. What should we be paying attention to and what makes sense for our brand? I think that's really important. I think one of the things we saw with plant based is people that probably shouldn't have put plant based on their menu did, and then it didn't perform well. So, again, understanding the trends and then understanding them through the lens of your business and being true to your brand. If it doesn't make sense, that's okay. Or if there's a way that we can tweak it so that it does make more sense, for your brand, then that's great. We have to remember these chains are, hundreds, thousands of units, and it needs to taste the same across every location. So there are a lot of things that aren't going to work. And so we can, certainly help you identify those things that will.
I like to say you can't know what to sell unless you know what you stand for. And it's amazing, especially bigger companies, that there are some who don't have that, or they entrust their positioning and their brand vision, or as we like to say, the brand North Star, to some ad agency that comes up with campaign ideas and fails to apply it to what the menu would actually offer, or your unique culinary point of view and your style of food. It's
Yeah. And what operations can execute, right? I mean, in an environment like that. Yeah.
Yes, that's where you want to start to. When you figure out the brand is, then you figure out which trends apply and then how to take action on them.
Yeah.
Um, when you think about, Megan, those who maybe don't have an insights team yet, or their Data Central subscription, maybe they're saving up, what do you
Yeah.
recommend they do to track and apply insights to their brand or test some of these early ideas? How might they, as they grow into the capabilities that you and your clients have, put the foundation in place? What's most important?
Yeah, I mean, we produce a lot of information for free. And so we provide a lot of value, I think, to the industry. So even if you're just starting out, or you're trying to kind of understand what's going on, we've been doing webinars every month since during COVID. So Jack, when COVID first happened, Jack made a kind of put a stake in the ground and said, "Hey, we're going to meet every week with the industry and just talk about what's going on and give people a platform." And we've continued to do that. The timing has morphed into more of a monthly, but we really do try to serve the industry overall. We did it back then, and we continue to because obviously we're committed, and if restaurants don't survive, we don't survive. So there's a lot that you can tap into, and even just beyond Data Essential. And I would say pick some brands that you emulate and watch what they're doing, and what that LTO strategy is. We see a lot more trial among consumers for LTOs. And it's easier, I think, for operators to execute and try something new in that short time period. So you can certainly keep an eye on things like that. And then to your point, Liz, like knowing your brand and what makes sense for you, and really understanding your North Star and your DNA and then leading that way. I mean, I've seen it happen where people try to lean into something that just doesn't make sense for them. So stay true to yourself. And then, we often find, actually our data, when we work with manufacturers, they typically use that data with operators. So we know that there's tons of operators out there that see our data through their supplier partners, and that's okay. That's great. Then that operator might hit an inflection point and say, you know what, it's time for me to see this beyond my soda provider or my protein provider. So use the resources in the industry and the people that are serving you, especially your vendors. If they're a good partner and a good vendor, they should be helping you with that ideation as well.
Totally. I love when that happens. And your fellow podcast leader, Greg Creed, talks about how it doesn't take that long to just pause, figure out what the brand stands for, then apply those things. And I love bringing in vendors and facilitating that co-creation so that you're using, current and potential ingredients as you're creating things. I like to say there are bad ideas. We don't want them. We want the ones that can work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And those suppliers that get in the trenches with you, you'll stick with them and they'll stick with you. And everybody wants that next growing chain, right? They want to kind of get in with the right emerging chain. So it's a great opportunity.
It's awesome. Any other trends you see coming up for 2026 as we look ahead to the bright new shiny year? Anything we
Oh
should be
man.
aware of?
We continue to see beverage innovation around beverage, which is really fun. So I expect that to continue. I know we talked a little bit about fiber. Retail. I think we haven't talked much about retail food service, but that's definitely an area, and it's kind of come, kind of up and down, up and down. COVID certainly had an impact there, but grocery stores, C stores are doing a lot around the food service side. So unfortunately, it's just more competition for restaurants, right? But I definitely think we'll see a lot of C stores upping their game in that area as well.
Any favorite examples of that?
So, um, I live in Phoenix. We don't have like a Wawa or a Sheets. And I don't have a Bucky's. So Bucky's is on my list. I've not been to
Bucky's is here in Colorado. You got to come.
Have you been, Liz?
Of course. I lived in Texas for a little bit and lived the Bucky's life.
So Bucky's is on my list of one that I'm really like dying. So I don't have a huge I don't have a great experience with C-store food. Like Quick Trip, my kids do, the Quick Trip moving beyond the roller grill was huge for our I'm kind of a weirdo though. I'm big in like healthy and the protein and things like that. Or I do love just hummus and fruit and some of the fresh foods that C-stores are now stocking. That's been huge.
Those are good.
Yeah, for me, as we've done like road trips and things like that.
Any other flavors to watch? Any other flavors that you see starting to make that leap on the curve?
Yeah, we talked a little bit yesterday about things like ube. That's still pretty powerful. I mentioned lemon pepper, which was really interesting. And then we're seeing some Indian cuisines pop up and some of that become more approachable as well to consumers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And is there a trend or an unmet need you wish a brand would finally commercialize? Is there anything that you'd been dying to see executed at long last? Maybe a sleeper?
Oh, that's a really good question. I haven't thought about that. No, I like the protein approach. Like I like the Starbucks, and I think we'll see some other brands implement that. I'll be really interested with this fiber thing and how that comes across. Sometimes we add things, like I mentioned with plant-based, sometimes we add it where it may not be needed. So I'll be really interested to see if it creates an opportunity for more like whole foods and things like that. I think that'd be great.
Cool. I had a protein latte from Starbucks yesterday. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, good. It's unflavored, right? So it doesn't really impact the flavor profile. Yeah.
I got a little flavor film
in the drink. Oh, okay. Okay.
But it was good. In the next 3 to 5 years, Megan, what do you think will separate creative brand leaders from those who fall behind? What will they be doing differently when it comes to this kind of insights, foresight, future planning, and putting it through your brand lens, having taken the time to figure out what your brand stands for?
Yeah. So I think if we go back to our first question, right, and we think about AI, I think we're seeing that evolution, right? We used to be gut based as an industry, then we leaned on data. There's so much data. So I think we really will see those who succeed, who lean into AI the right way and who use it based on, credible, verifiable data. And then to your point, Liz, just then matching that with their brand identity and what makes sense. The great thing about the restaurant industry is it all comes down to the food and the experience for the consumer. So as long as you're being true to yourself and staying relevant with the consumer that way, I think those are the ones that are going to succeed. So I'm excited about AI. I'm still learning a ton about it. There's a lot of slop. That's the new word that we see out there, just junk. Even as I look at my kids, they're way more versed in it than I am, which I'm excited about. So I do think the next 3 to 5 years will be critical there. And I think we're going to see more data sets integrate and people use AI across different areas of the business, which is great because it's been so siloed. Data's been siloed across the organization. So being able to bring it all together, including our data, as they look at consumers and sales and traffic and things like that, I think will be.
Mhm. Are there any other, as you're learning, are there any other ways that you would suggest brand leaders use AI? Obviously, we have, like you said, ChatGPT for the basics. I find it's really helpful not to come up with new ideas, which is why I'm pretty confident that it won't be taking our jobs anytime soon. It's not that creative, but iterations, flavors, varieties,
Fine tuning, things like that.
fine tuning, or maybe expanding the product line if you're doing line extensions. And to your point, taking your foundational signature products and adding some of the trendy items to them. How else do you think they should be using it?
Yeah. I mean, I like the AI on the front line. So at the kiosk or at the drive-through to order. Obviously, you and I both know how hard it is to run restaurants right now. And so the labor piece of it, anything that we can automate on the certainly in the back of the house, but then even at the drive-through and things like that, especially as AI gets better and we move beyond the concern, that it's clunky and things like that. I'm excited about that and that impact.
Nice. And then how do you stay creative day to day, Megan? It sounds like your kids help you and just exploring and experimenting and trying all the new trends. What else are you doing?
Yeah, my kids definitely help me. And then I just think like my Datassential colleagues really help me. I don't consider myself nearly a foodie like our folks are who are in the data all the time and uncovering, the newest trend or something to have on your radar. So I just really love talking to our colleagues and then talking to operators and what they're seeing. And then I am really, really inspired by the younger generation. I'm working with one of the universities here in Arizona and their hotel and restaurant management program. And like, I will tell you, if you want to feel good about the world, like go talk to college students or high school students and the next generation. They're not nearly as jaded as we are, and they have so much hope and energy to give. And so that just really gets me excited, especially in this industry that is so reliant on our people. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm a talker, right? Shocking. So I love, meeting new folks. But I was up at it's Northern Arizona University. I was up there a couple months ago, and they had a cafe, and they had a kid who had roasted this special coffee and was telling me the story of the beans and the farmers, and it's amazing. So it's really hard to feel crummy about the world when you're talking to these kids that just have so much hope and excitement. So that definitely empowers me a bit.
It's wonderful. I taught a class up at the University of Colorado, and I've kept in touch with quite a few of the students and invited them to be a part of our Constellation Council. So they've been contributing with ideas when we do online ideations, and their ideas are some of the best ones. They've made it into the final innovation rounds.
Oh my gosh, that's great. We should talk about that, Liz, because as I do more with this university, I'd love some of your input and experience on that side. Yeah, it's so important for them to get some of that real world exposure. So that's great.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, we'll trade ideas on that front, but I'm thinking of building that out some more. They're just awesome. Well, Megan, let's switch gears a little bit into our starry-eyed sparks, a bit of a lightning round.
Oh,
What
all
is
right.
are you ready? What is the best, most inspiring book you've read? And that could be lately or of all time.
Yeah. So, admittedly, I don't read a ton of businessy leadership books. I try to listen to them. I'm a big fan of Atomic Habits, which is just this idea of incremental improvement. So 1% better every day, and then just foundational habits that can help over time. I know you and I share a love for running and activity and outdoors. And so the Atomic Habits actually kind of falls along with Garmin and their idea of like, what is their better today or better tomorrow, something like that. So anyway, so that's mine. I've used it a lot, like with teams and just like setting yourself up for success by the small decisions and the small habits that you set out.
Awesome. Okay, I'll find that one. What
Yeah.
is one word that describes how you'd like to lead in the next year, especially as you step into this new role? You've been there.
Yeah. Um, Probably connection, I would say, and capitalizing on the connection that Datassential has with our customers. One of the things with my role is really connecting to our clients' business value and business needs, and helping them see the power of innovation and data, and how we can help drive traffic and improve sales and things like that. So I would say really capitalizing on the connection that we have, and that our clients have with their customers.
And what's one new thing you'd like to try in the next year?
Mm. Oh my goodness. I mentioned Bucky's. I know that sounds silly, but really, like, I love finding new chains or new C stores or things like that. So there's a chain out of Texas, HTO. You might know that from when you were there. So it's another beverage chain that's blown up and growing like crazy.
Oh, yes, I do know that. Yes, yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
that's on my list.
Okay.
And then some more Indian cuisine. We covered, I think it's called Keralan, which is kind of a unique region within India that we covered in our webinar yesterday.
Ooh,
So I want to try to branch out a little bit in that area as well.
that's lovely. Okay. I'm going to India on New Year's Eve.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
So I'll see what I find for you.
Are you taking the whole family?
Yeah, just the seven of us.
Wow, Liz. Oh my gosh.
We'll taste some things. You'll have to tell me what to
Yeah.
look
Oh, I'll
out
send you some
for.
ideas. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, love it. What is your go-to walk-on or pump-up song when you're taking the stage in front of the
Oh,
kids?
it's so fun. Yeah. So my kids hate it. So there's a song I used to do spin. We used to do in spin class. I took a spin class and they would show the videos. So it's called Glorious by Macklemore. Do you know the song? And it's like I feel glorious. Glorious gonna start again or something like that. But the video is amazing. It's Macklemore like taking like his 100-year-old grandma out on her birthday, and they do like all these crazy things. So it's one of my favorites. My kids hate it because it's like obviously not very popular right now. Like it had its time and it's not whatever, but my daughter plays volleyball, she used to play softball. And I'd be like, do we need a little bit of glorious right now? And she's like, no, mom, no. So I do like that one. And then I'm also a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And Rosalita is by far my favorite song ever. And that one will always get me excited and get me going.
All
So
right. Well, you're in charge of creating the trends. Let's bring these songs back as
there
well.
we go. Yeah. Well, Bruce, I mean, come on, he's a timeless classic. So, and the guy, and he's like 75 and still rocking. It's amazing. So,
Great.
life goals for
And
sure.
then yes, life goals for sure. And then back to drinks for a moment. What's your favorite cocktail or mocktail?
So, I'm not a big cocktail person actually. Outside of the margarita or whatnot, I did just buy a mocktail book. Just because sometimes you want something fancy, but you may not want the booze. I actually, if I had to choose something, we used to live in Kansas City for many years. And so Boulevard beer is one of my favorites. And they do distribute more out here, but they don't necessarily carry it on tap. So anytime I find it, it's like a little bit of
Mm,
home when I
That's
can tap into that. So
that's a great taste of home.
yeah, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, anything else that you're thinking of that's top of mind that brand leaders should know as they look into, yeah, this new year of insights and trends? Anything else that you'd like to
No,
include?
I think no, I think just lean in. Like lean in and be curious about what's going on and what the younger generation is into and how that fits with your brand. And tap into your partners, whether it's us or, your suppliers. I think when we all work together, we have a greater impact. So I'm excited. It's hard not to be excited about food and flavors and trends, but and I know it's a tough operating environment right now for folks, but there's still a lot of bright spots, and consumers still really love going out to eat, thankfully, and it's definitely part of our fabric. So we have that great opportunity in the restaurant space.
That's awesome. Yeah, lean in. Whether you're in food service, CPG, like we said, all of these trends are going to then impact beauty and personal care.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see after listening to today. And Megan, who's a creative brand leader you admire and think we should invite next to stay starry eyed?
Ooh, so you've had some great people on. I listened to the Ted Breyer with Ted. Obviously, I listened to Greg because he's amazing.
Did you
Uh,
listen to Todd from Swig
I have not listened to that one yet. No, but I need
for the
to.
kids?
Have you had Erin Walter from Freddy's on, the CMO
No,
of Freddy's? So
we're
she's
in touch for that.
Okay, I will bug her for you because she's a fellow Georgia grad, and so we always enjoy that. I really like the Freddy's brand. Again, they started outside of Kansas City initially. I know they've now grown, but they're a favorite. And they have a kind of, you typically see like a Chick-fil-A and a Freddy's together, just really two great brands. So we should bug Erin for you to get her on your podcast because she is their CMO. And she used to work, I think, with GFG too. So she's got a really great background.
Yes, she was my client at GFG before she went to Freddy's, and I think we can. I don't think we take much convincing. I think she'll.
No, I don't think so either. She's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot going on at Freddy's, but I'm sure she can spare an hour for you, Liz. She's pretty awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, Megan, thank you so much. Thanks for giving us what's to come as well, so we can all be ready for the new year.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. And happy holidays. Is this the end is this the last one of the year?
No, we'll keep going. We got to keep the inspiration and creativity coming through the end of the year and into the new.
All right. Well, happy holidays if I don't talk.
Happy holidays to you. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Stay Starry-Eyed podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas, strategies, and tools you can use to move your brand and business forward. If you enjoyed this episode, here's how you can help share it with your fellow brand leaders who need it most. Hit follow, share it with a friend, and please leave us 5 stars or a quick review. You know we love all the stars. You can also find show notes, resources, and additional inspiration at starryeyedstrategy.com. Until next time, stay starry-eyed.